trees in the backwoods night. Red lights cutting through the pine in flight. Bigfoot stomping with his youngling beard. Whispers of tales that ain't too clear. UFOs buzzing solo through the haze. Howling banshees set the forest ablaze. Jersey devil howls drink rays to the sky. Drunken cryptids party until the morning's night. Yeah. It's showtime, running wild in the moonlight. Stars burn down, watch the freaks all take flight.
To good times.
Raise your glasses to the mysteries divine. It's showtime, let the cryptids realign.
And welcome back to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. I'm your host, Matthew Orton, but you guys already know that. Hey, real quick shout out, blademedia.com. Thank you, Dylan, for all the hard work you've done on the website and the logo. Big news coming, you guys. Yes, that's right. We are doing our own Cryptid Festival. The Arkansas Cryptid Festival Fest is going to be June 6th of 2026. It's going to be at 600 North Broadway Street in North Little Rock. Old Bart's right there. Old Bart's is nice enough to sponsor and donate the location for us to be able to have this. We have VIP speakers that are going to be coming in. We're going to have free public speakers coming in. We're going to have a Bigfoot calling contest. We're going to be doing the casting classes. We're going to have a blast. I can tell you guys that right now. There's going to be VIP tickets for sale. Check the Eventbrite. All links and everything will be posted. So make sure you check it out, and I hope to see you guys on June 6th. Speaking of festivals and everything, I just recently was up in Ohio and was up there, the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree 2, put on by Justin and Jay, Cryptids of the Corn. Great. You guys, if you're ever there, you need to go check it out, or just go listen to Cryptids of the Corn. And there was a lot of good speakers that were coming in, and I got lucky enough, and I kept trying to place where I recognized the voice at, and I'd heard him before, and it was a busy day, and by the time everything clicked in on me, I felt horrible because I didn't get a chance to visit with him as much as I wanted to. So we exchanged information, and we're like, yeah, we'll come on a show. So tonight, I have a special guest coming for you guys, someone that I'm excited to have on, Ron Murphy. And Ron Ron's a wealth of knowledge and information. And he's gone down not only one rabbit hole, but I think he's probably gone down all the rabbit holes trying to chase down all these wonderful, crazy, mythological, cryptid creatures that we have out there. You know, whether it be just a story or whether it actually be something, an actual real event. And the way he presents the information, the way he puts it out there is very easy to follow, and it's right to the point. He's an amazing guy, and I can't wait for you guys to hear the interview. This is going to be so much fun. So without further ado, let me welcome the Ron Murphy. Ron, how you doing?
Matthew, I hope I can live up to that introduction. I greatly appreciate it. It is truly an honor for me to be here as well. And I do agree with you. So we were at the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree in Ada, Ohio, and we were, right, really a couple tables down from each other.
Yeah, we had Wild Bill between us.
We have yeah, exactly. So that kept people at bay to begin with, but I think it gives credence to how well this event was coordinated, put on, and attended, because we got very little words between us, simply because we were talking to people that were constantly coming and going during the event.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, every time I looked down in your area, you had people packed up there. And, so I'd get out Jacob would take over the booth for me, and I'd get, Because I get I do have some introvert qualities about me. Behind the microphone, I'm like, hey guys, what's up? How are we doing? In public, I'm like, all right, don't talk to me, please. Um, but so Jacob, he did a great job. And I was going to walk down, and every time I was going to walk down to your booth, every time there's people there, and I was like, oh, I kept peeking over their shoulders, going, oh, okay, I'm trying to see the books, and all right, and then I'd look, and I'd have to go back to my booth as well. And then I missed your speaking, and that broke my heart. And I was like, because they had great speakers. I mean, they did great. They had you. I mean, come on.
Well, I appreciate that. And I was wondering what I was going to speak about whenever I went to the presentation, because I usually do, a PowerPoint, talk about Bigfoot and such. But I thought, this could get old after a while. I mean, people don't want to necessarily have PowerPoints thrown in their faces the entire day. So I thought I would just go up there without any kind of PowerPoints or slides or anything, and simply talk to the folks about my experiences in this crazy world of the paranormal and cryptozoological, and that's what I did. I basically told them like my origin story, some of the things I've investigated, and some of the high points of my investigations as well too. And that's a great forum to do such a thing, right? So I'm finding out, having attended festivals and conferences, as somebody that was there as, to gather research and to gather information, kind of a fanboy, and also on the other side as being a speaker as well, too. And I found that the Ada, Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree had some of the most intelligent attendees that I've ever seen, and that's happening more and more. I was just recently down in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, as part of the GobbleCon. Actually, I just came back yesterday. It was Friday, or it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We were down there, and these folks were amazing. These guys that were coming here to listen to the speakers were well read. They were well researched, and they really knew their thing. And that's happening more and more. And I'm glad to see it. What's going on is the reason why people are becoming so well informed is podcasts like this, and things like what Cryptids of the Corn put together out in Ohio. And I'm very, like I said, I'm very honored and flattered to be a part of this, because there has been a change going on, right? No longer are we marginalized anymore. We're now able to talk about this at an intelligent level to intelligent people in places where very few people would imagine people gathering for such things. And like I said, I owe you a debt of gratitude, because you have a podcast where you are able to disseminate this kind of information. And without you, without Cryptids of the Corn and these other people that are throwing together these great events, this would dwindle back down to obscurity again. And I'm glad we are right now in the mainstream of things.
Well, I appreciate that, the kind words. Thank you. But you're right. When I was first approached about starting a podcast back in 2020, I actually associated it with the YouTubers. I was like, I don't want to be the guy opening up packages on YouTube. I don't want nothing to do with that. And I wouldn't know what to say. And, as time went on, I had some really good friends that were pushing me. My first producer, Maddie, he was so adamant about, he was wanting to produce the show. He was all excited. And he's like, what are you going to name it? And, we were playing trivia, bar trivia one night. And I always come up with like a Bigfoot name for the teams. And the lady goes, so what's y'all's team name? And I looked, we had like 4 pitchers of beer for like 8 of us. And I was like, we're the Drunkencryptids. And that was our name. I was like, that's the podcast name. So, right. And, Maddie, he jumped on, he saw the website and he goes, dude, you can own the .com, drunkencryptids.com. Nobody has that. And I was like, well, is that good? He goes, dude, it's a .com. It's not like a .org or / or anything. You would own drunkencryptids.com. And I was like, okay. And boom, it was born. And then unfortunately, Maddie, had a massive stroke a couple months later and passed away. And then I got lucky. My friend Tommy, came over. And that's where I believe, God has a hand in certain things. And he brought Tommy over this weekend. And I was thinking about hanging everything up and not pursuing it any further. And Tommy's like, I want to produce it. And I thought about it. And a few days later, he came over, and within a week, he had, not only was I on YouTube, but I was on Spotify. I was everywhere. And he was, it's blown up since then. But through podcasting,
it was meant to be. Yep.
Through podcasting, what I've learned is there's more information being put out. And I like I love the eyewitness podcast. And that's what I wanted to model my show on, was I want to get down to the encounter. I want to get down to the research, what you have found out there. Because, we still have the TV shows out there, and my theory on those is they're never going to find the hardcore evidence because it takes away from the sponsorships. If you find what you're looking like, I'll use Oak Island for an example. I mean, they've been doing this thing for 13 years. I mean, how much further down can they dig?
They probably are close to reaching China by now.
Exactly. I mean, the way I look at it, because every episode of all these things, like, oh my gosh, look what we just found. Dun, dun, dun. Tune in next week. And they go, oh, look, it was a chestnut, or there's something walking through the woods. And everybody turns, what is that? It was a raccoon,
Yes, I do know. And I was addicted to that show for the very first year because I thought, hey, these guys are on to something. I knew about Oak Island ever since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I played with my brother and my friends in the neighborhood that we were investigating Oak Island ourselves. And now here on, the History Channel, was a few millionaires that had the money to put behind them on a proper, expedition, a proper dig. And they dropped the ball, But like you said, if they ever found anything, then they lose their Dorito sponsorships or whatever, And that is the thing. So a lot of people are drawn to these conferences because of name recognition, right? They want to see the people on television. And many of those people are very good, but I also have a bit of a caveat here as well. Sometimes whenever you meet your heroes or your idols, you're going to be slightly depressed by the encounter. I find that the majority of these people that I've met, these so-called, experts on the paranormal and the cryptozoological, tend to be nothing more than talking heads, and they were hired probably the same way you hire newscasters. They simply look good spouting out information. That information they're spouting out, more likely than not, is not the information they have gathered and produced. They're simply a vehicle by which a company is making money, and they look good, and they're the spokesperson for the cryptozoological or the paranormal or what have you. And the real researchers out there that are trying to get to the answers and trying to get, the proof that they need are left standing there holding the bag while these people are profiting from everything. Like I said, hey, I'm a bit of a fanboy whenever it comes to this as well. I still do pay to go see the big names speak, but more often than not, I'm left a little bit let down by the experience.
I get that. And I'll be honest, I'm a fanboy too. Speaking of Ohio, like when I first met Justin and Jay, they came down here. We did a live show together, and I want to say it was March, April timeframe. And it was like a tornado season from hell. I mean, we had tornadoes, we had flash flooding. I mean, we were flooded out, thunderstorms. I mean, it was a crazy, people's hotels had no power. And I'm like, oh, this is horrible. But I fangirled the whole entire weekend going, I got Justin and Jay here. And
sure.
Then up there, same thing. Timothy Wayne was meeting you, meeting Joel Thomas, getting a chance to meet Ward. And what blew me away was when Ward sat there through my whole presentation that I did. I'm like, I'm a nobody. In my opinion, I'm a nobody in this field. I have some decent theories, but he sat there and when he got done, he was like, "Can I talk to you?" I was like, "Please." And so when they're doing, what do you think about? And that was, to me, the fanboying got turned around. And I haven't been too disappointed yet in meeting some of these people that their names are out there and stuff. And I got a chance to meet Todd Neese. I mean, I'm really good friends with Todd Neese. I mean, we probably message each other every day, if not every other day, So, and he moved from Oregon to Arkansas, and I got lucky enough, and for some reason, Todd likes me. So, hey, thanks, Todd. I appreciate it.
Very much, yeah. And for the most part, I've not been completely disillusioned by the people in the cryptid field. I think we start kind of straddling the line whenever it comes to, the big time UFO investigators, the big time ghost hunters. I think that's a whole different genre right there, a whole different group of people. But for the most part, I really do enjoy the company that I keep within the cryptozoological field.
Yes, I'm with you on that one. I love the company, and what I've learned, was what I've experienced, I should say, not necessarily learned, is that within the past year, my little bubble of my cryptid community is growing. And the people that I have in it, I mean, I've got, the guys from Chumming with the Spirits up there in Kansas, great. These three guys are hilarious. And they take it very seriously, though. Of course, Justin and Jay, Crips of the Corn, same thing. You got Miss Monsters of Mole. I don't know if you got a chance to meet John or not. He was almost across from you. He was the guy that was selling the mullets.
Oh, yes, did. Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
So super great guy. He started on TikTok just having fun, and now he's running a successful podcast. Beside him was Nevermore Hollows, and that's a unique type of podcast where they do a horror story, but it's an ongoing story. So every episode is continuation, and with character development. I mean, this should be a TV series. To be honest with you, this would be great on HBO.
It would. Oh, yeah.
So, and then of course I got a chance to meet like the Cryptid podcast, and Rye from Codex, and then other podcasts as well that aren't in our genre, but they like what I have to say, and they've pulled me onto they've reached out to me to come onto their show, and that was a lot of fun. People who are like, yeah, we've had a couple of strange encounters, but we do history, so tell us about yours. And I'm like, well, thanks, guys. It's an honor. So it's a lot of fun being pulled into this circle and getting a chance to meet, and we're not all like-minded because we all have good theories and we all share our theories with each other. And then we try and make our theories overlap with each other is what I like.
Oh, absolutely. It's about networking, and it is, right. So you don't want everybody to agree with you. So there's an intelligent debate that goes on out there as well, too. Civilly, mind you, right?
Yes.
These aren't arguments. This is a way we can gather information and share information and try to get to the bottom of this. If I have puzzle pieces and you have some pieces and this guy over here has some, hey, let's lay them down on the table and see if we can make some picture out of it.
Exactly. That's how I feel. Especially when it comes to the cryptids, because you have to take every encounter on every cryptid and you have to look at it. Whether, when it comes, whether the woo is involved or whether the flesh and blood is involved or whether the in-between is involved. Because it all means something. And
it does.
As we were talking off air, a lot of encounters, there seems to be a lot. I'm not saying every encounter, you guys, but a lot of encounters when it comes to some of these cryptids, there also seems to be running some kind of parallel paranormal with it.
Sure. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I think that this is worthy of discussion. And any part of the paranormal field, whether you're, a UFO researcher, cryptozoologist, a ghost hunter, whatever you're looking for, I think that this is an important topic, and that is not to have an agenda. So many people have an agenda, and they have, they think they know what they're looking for, right? And that can be absolutely fatal whenever it comes to gathering information in order to share. There's a lot of investigators that I know that hold that Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature, and any information that they obtain, if it contains anything that's outside of a flesh and blood element, they simply they disregard it. They throw it away. So we, as a group of researchers out there in this overall world of researchers trying to get to the bottom of this mystery, we are now left without those pieces of the puzzle that may be very important in constructing the overall bigger picture.
I agree, and I think they're missing our pieces as well.
Yes,
You know,
definitely, yeah,
and I think that,
yeah.
to be honest with you, it's going to be it. I don't think it's going to be a TV show or somebody famous is actually going to get to the bottom of this. I think it's going to be some person who had an encounter and it left a mark on them, and they go out looking, and they're going to be the ones who are going to get to they're going to figure it out, or it's going to be podcasters, or it's going to be, it's the independent researchers are the ones who are going to get to the bottom of a lot of this stuff.
Well, sure, absolutely, because science already says that Bigfoot doesn't exist, and there's a lot of people using eDNA out there right now, environmentally obtained DNA, and it that is as good as the person that's testing it, and even science has preconceived notions and agendas. For instance, there was this a great collection of samples from Loch Ness in order to collect the environmental DNA, and they being the scientists, the mainstream scientists, claim that they have solved the mystery, and there is a huge population of eels that exists within Loch Ness. But if you look over the data, it's very curious that there's no otters mentioned in that data, although we know for a fact that otters do exist in Loch Ness. So again, we have this kind of circumstantial evidence that there may be more going on than meets the eye, because even science that is supposed to be very open-minded, whenever it comes to cryptids and monsters, they are very closed-doored and very cloistered, and they are not apt to accept anything that goes against the mainstream thought.
You're right. It's funny you mentioned the otters, because if you watch that episode as they're taking the water samples, there's otters in the background.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And you would think that they would probably, at that point, even have hair samples, let alone environmental DNA. But yeah, it all comes down to that. I mean, they were trying to rule out, right? They were trying to not find anything curious, and they know what they were doing, and these are very expensive samples as well too. So in order to do it properly, we know that something was amiss because it was so rushed in order to get the data out there.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Okay, so all right, so you had mentioned at the beginning you had something happen to you.
Yeah, sure. What really led me into being a researcher that wants to kind of speak out and do conferences and everything is to really get my story out there, because my story tends to be very unusual. It's not cut and dry. It's not black and white. It's that gray area that you and I had talked about. So I was out with a fellow, we'll put the quotation marks up and say fellow investigator, but at this time we were just kind of a ragtag group of people that assembled, that we were like-minded. We had a camcorder, and we thought we're to go out there and try to collect evidence, right? So we went to an area that was very rife with sightings of everything. This is a hotspot in Western Pennsylvania, ghosts and cryptids and UFOs and everything else. So we thought we would go down to this particular area to see what was going on. And as our investigation progressed late into the night, we started to experience some things that were strange. We started to experience some, it looked like, I guess you would call it static electricity. It's like whenever you pull a blanket off of a bed on a winter's night and you see those kind of sparks, we were experiencing things like that. We didn't know exactly what was going on, but we were experiencing something that looked like an atmospheric disturbance, but it was around us, and right, it was within reach. So I'd never experienced anything like that before, and I thought, this is probably a good time to get out of there. We are inexperienced. This is our first real investigation, so I don't know what might happen from here. Now, as this was going on, this discharge of electricity, we noticed that our equipment was acting up as well. Batteries were being drained to the point that our camcorder was now losing power. Flashlights weren't working. Something strange going on. So this kind of really spurred us to get out of there even quicker. We turned to leave because the path in is the same path out, and it's the only path to get out of there. So this is a pretty confined area we were at, which is great for research, but horrible whenever you're stuck out there in the middle of the night with something unknown going on. So as we turn to leave and go down this path, we see this light flicker to life. It looked almost like a flare, or maybe close to a sparkler on the 4th of July. It kind of like sparkles on, and it stays illuminated for probably maybe less than a fraction of a second, and then it goes off again in these same kind of sparks. And we thought, well, this is unusual, right? But we have to get out of here, so we're going to have to go past where we saw this light emerge. So as we head on to back towards where we parked, which was about a mile and a half away, where that light illuminated off to our right-hand side, we hear something now in the woods begin to keep pace with us, right? We can hear something, what it seems to us as if it's crawling along. It doesn't seem to be any kind of cadence to steps or anything. Something seems to be crawling along as we are walking. And not only is it crawling along, but we can also hear it taking in breath, right, to the point that sometimes you can even hear a snarl. So there is now something to the right of us in the woods that I do not believe was there before that light emanated, right? So now there's something out there, and it's following us, and we're scared. So as we go in the darkness without our flashlights because the battery has drained, we notice that it's not easy going anymore, that the trail that we were walking on has now left us behind, and now we are in the woods with, jagger bushes attaching themselves to us and low limbs hitting our faces and everything. We're now in the woods, so we have lost the trail on which we were walking, and we're getting spooked out because not only have we lost the trail, we're now in the woods wherever this thing is with us as well, too. So we hear now, off to the left-hand side, my name being called just one time, Ron. I turn, this is the first time I've ever heard my name being called by something disembodied, right? We are scared, but what is odd about this is the area where my name was being called led us back onto the trail that we needed to get out of there. So we had made our way pretty deep into the woods by this time, but the left-hand side of where my name was called now led us back onto the path to get out of there. So as we started ascending the hill to get back to where the car was parked, this thing kind of makes like, I guess, a show, a stand. We never see it, but it starts shaking the trees, and now you can hear, audibly snarling at us. So whatever happened there, my friend, is the experience that took me down really my first rabbit hole. We were out there to investigate, some sort of cryptid. People talked about seeing even werewolves in this particular area, but Bigfoot definitely had been sighted down there. But from going down there on an investigation for something that we believed to be flesh and blood, now led us down a rabbit hole that had disembodied voices, and had electrical discharges, and in my opinion, the light that we saw seemed to represent a doorway opening into which something entered our world that was not previously there.
It's funny you mentioned that that doorway, i.e. / portal. I interviewed Scott Brush yesterday, and he's up in Michigan, and he's been doing a lot of the same thing, research, And he's actually got footage of a portal opening up and creatures coming out of it. And
Right.
so
Yeah,
I've
I've
got
heard things like that too. Yep.
the footage, and we're trying to clean it up. Tommy's really good at that. That's part of the other show that we have going, Spectre Beast 911, is to, get evidence like this and break it down. So Tommy's got it. We're trying to go through and clean it up. We're going to run through some filters that Tommy's got, some really good programs to try and help out with, help Scott with that. But so my question is so when you heard your name and that led you guys back to the trail, I mean, was it a feminine voice or was it?
It was.
It was a feminine voice?
Yeah, it was. It was a feminine voice, absolutely. Yeah, nothing startling about it. I mean, beside it being a disembodied voice in the middle of the night, there was nothing about it that seemed that we should be afraid. Right? It was as if we were being called out to, and that's that made all the difference in that night. Without the voice being called, without my name being called by the voice, I should say, we would have continued to walk. We were on an area that had an embankment. We were, on the right-hand side of us was also a very large river as well, too, called the Connemara River. So there was a lot of bad things that could have happened with the whatever was following us, notwithstanding. There was other natural elements that could have taken us out probably quicker than this other thing could have taken us out. But without my name being called, I don't know what would have happened. I suppose we would have just kept on going deeper and deeper into the woods, and without a flashlight, I'm not sure what would have happened.
So were you the only one that heard your name, or did your buddy hear it as well?
Oh no, my buddy heard it as well too.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I was
absolutely.
wondering whether it was like a mind speak or something like that that hit you with, because there's a lot.
Right.
So my mind always goes to the Fae folk when it comes to this stuff. I'm not gonna lie, my mind always goes to the Fae folk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
You got me when you said it was crawling. I wonder if it was spider crawling.
Yeah, I see. That's the whole thing. I don't know. So because we had talked about this earlier before we went on, sometimes you can fill in the blanks by things now, like looking back on it now, it seems that may have been what was going on. Let's put it this way. We knew that something was following us, right? But it was following us and it didn't want to be seen. It wanted us to know that it was there, but it did not want us to be able to pick out where it was. So there was definitely psychological warfare going on here, right? There was something in the woods that was intimidating us, but it wanted to remain unseen, and it certainly did that.
Yeah, that sounds really similar to my encounter that we talked about beforehand, at Fort Hood, to where it was there, but it didn't want us to see it.
Right. Right.
So, wow. So that's what got you going on all this.
Yeah, that's what got me going, and that actually was one of the instances that took me to the world, as you said, of the Fae. And I wrote a book entitled On Fairies, which was an historical survey. It was the last foreword written by Mary Ellen Guiley, and she was actually going to publish it before her untimely death. But it really struck me that these kind of encounters have been going on probably since we became humans, right? For thousands of years, people have been going out into the woods. Now, remember, the woods would have been much more familiar to humanity, but we've kind of left that behind. So now when we go into the woods, it's a place of unfamiliarity and chaos. But even whenever people were acquainted with the woods in a very intimate way, that relied on it for food and for shelter, it was still a place that could be frightening, right? And the reason why they found it frightening is there was a belief that there was sentient intelligences, sentient beings that lived within those woods, within that realm, that were seemingly a part of the environment. So much so that they became called elementals which really the name denotes that they are the intelligences within the environment itself. These are, I guess, the firstborn children of Gaia, if you would go that route. That if the world is a living organism, then these are the offsprings of that organism. But it's really interesting to look at and trying to come to terms with it. I started to research cultures from around the world, and every culture around the world, even if you're talking about Australia, which is far flung and really not equipped to handle any kind of cross pollination from other cultures, but you have within that culture and that cosmology and that mythology beings that act and function very much like fairy creatures in the Middle Ages that you have in the British Isles, right? We have this idea that there are things out there that are sort of like us in a way, but they are separate from us as well too. And it's just a fascinating rabbit hole to go down. And I'm glad that you brought it up, because I don't really bring it up first when we talk on these kind of podcasts, because if you start talking about fairies, people are going to think you're nuts. They immediately think of the Tinkerbell.
Yep.
They immediately think of Disney, but they don't. It's a shame, because they're shrugging off such a long heritage of fairy lore that I think that we do need to tap into that to really get a more focused view of the bigger picture.
I agree. And I'll be honest with you. So my eyes weren't really opened up to the Fae until a couple of years ago. And, when it was brought up, I kind of blew it off. I'm not going to lie, because I was one of those people again, like Tinkerbell, really? And started digging more and more into it. And I was talking with a friend of mine over a year and a half ago, and I was drinking a cup of coffee. And it was out of my favorite coffee cup. Every guy, we all have our one coffee cup. That's our coffee cup. I mean, I have 100 coffee cups, but there's that one I always grab.
Oh, yeah.
And I was outside, I was drinking coffee, and I was talking with her on the phone, and I had a little bit of coffee left. It gotten cold, so I went to, dump it out. As I did the little, wrist flick with it, the whole cup went. I'm holding the handle. The whole cup goes flying, hits the ground. It doesn't break. And I was like, what the hell? And I told her, and she goes, oh, well, that's the Fae. I've been telling you, you've upset the Fae. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And so, sure enough, she told me what I needed to do to protect to protect the house and everything. I did it, and it went away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a common story, right? Not common now, but in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, that was a common thing. If you pissed off the fairies, and it was probably unintentional, they would really make your life unbearable. That was the thing. So what had happened was, one of the precautions is don't try to interact with these things, right? Don't call them by name. They were called the fair folk or the wee folk. Like, just be as passive as you possibly can. Acknowledge that they're there, but don't try to give them names. Don't try to clothe them. Every now and then you can leave out some honey or some milk. You can feed them like that. But in no way are you supposed to ever try to domesticate them anyways, right? And if you have a house brownie, which is this kind of spirit that is associated with a particular residence or a particular area, they've been known to clean up and cobble shoes and do dishes and fold laundry and all that kind of stuff. But if you try to make them part of your home or thank them in any way, that is whenever you're going to start causing problems. It is. There's a lot of really cool associations that you can make. That the fairy realm is the personification of nature. It gives and it takes away. It can be very ambivalent as well, and it can be irrational at times and chaotic at times. But it also, as I said, even though it enters into the human realm, it is not meant to live here. So any act of domestication or any act of acknowledgement is something that they will resist and push against, and oftentimes that's detrimental to us.
No, I agree 100%. And I do think it, as you mentioned earlier, to where, calling our names, a lot of this stuff has been blown off and just kind of like passed on and old superstitions. But there was something to the old superstitions. It's where even in Iceland, they will detour roads and road constructions to go around fairy mounds to not disturb them, to disrupt them at all.
Yeah.
You know,
right? Even now, in 2025, that still goes on. This isn't something antiquated and say all those people living back in the 1500s did such silly things. These are people with college educations. These are structural engineers that refuse to go into areas that are believed to be sacred to the little people.
I agree. And so what's funny is that since we're on the subject of Fae and you like to do a lot of research, we did, of course, with the help of Chris, we did a deep dive into the infamous night siege in northern Ohio, 1982.
Wow.
The family was under siege for 3 months. And what's funny about that is how it all started off was they were putting in a pipeline through the area, and it was going to go on these people's property, yada, yada, yada. And the bulldozer guy reported seeing like these 4 holes that were the size of 50-gallon drums in this little clearing. And he just plowed through them.
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, to me, that says Fae. That whole everything in that encounter says Fae from those 3 months on.
Sure.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I agree. And because we live, in America, and we don't have quite the folklore that our ancestors had, we overlook this kind of stuff. But we also have to keep in mind that the Cherokee and the Navajo and a lot of other First Nations people also had tales of not only the little people, but, if you think of fairies as diminutive, but they're not always like that. But they have a conception within their culture of beings like called the laurel people or the rock people that are human-like, but they exist in the world outside of humanity. Very interesting to look at. So even if you deal with Bigfoot, for instance, right, and you look at the writings of Paracelsus and other alchemists who were trying to not only commune with, but negotiate with the world of the elemental. The Bigfoot fits right into the Sylvan, which is the element of the forest. And what better way to represent the forest than a wild man, And I think that we're taking a lot of things. I mean, we look at these other kind of quaint, homey little explanations for the natural world as something that, oh my goodness, how far behind they were. They lived in the Dark Ages. But we also have to understand that they were the shoulders on which we stand in order to get into pharmacy and pharmaceuticals. Paracelsus, who wrote about mermaids and who wrote about fairies and other kind of creatures that we would call mythological, also came up with a name for zinc. And he was one of the fathers of mineralogy and treating people with diseases through minerals. So these people were not, Neanderthals in any ways. These people were very intelligent people that was trying to deal with the world around them the best they could. And one of their conceptions was the world was alive with all kinds of intelligences, and there was more to the world than just the humanity of it.
I agree 100%. And my argument on this has been our history books and our, even our biology books, everything all stems from Cambridge.
Mm-hmm.
These guys, these explorers who would go to Cambridge, become educated in Cambridge, would go out into the world. And let's say they go to the Congo, right? And so they meet the natives, the natives there in Congo. And the natives are going, hey, look, yeah, we got hippos here. And they're like, yeah, that's right. That's a hippo. And they're like, yeah, we got giraffes. Yeah, there's a giraffe. Yeah, we got alligators. Yeah, there's a really weird, dinosaur-looking creature over there. And they go, no, you're stupid.
That's
You know,
that's absolutely the case. That's right. Or the cenocephali, the dog-headed people of India and Libya,
yes.
parts of Africa and Asia had these dog-headed people that people have been reporting for hundreds of years. Sailors were coming back with these tales that were told, and even mermaids. But these are not the things to be believed, but everything else is.
Exactly. I mean, Marco Polo discovered an island full of these creatures and wrote in length about these dog-headed creatures.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But now, Marco Polo was making everything up. This is one of the consensus now in the mainstream. He did not mention the Great Wall of China, so he probably wasn't there. So, there's always different type of angles to take. But look, hey, even Christopher Columbus mentioned seeing mermaids, and he also mentioned seeing strange lights on the horizon as well. But these things are thrown out because these are the musings of a person that was at sea for too long. So anything that somebody comes up with is easily dismissed because we don't think it's possible that they saw it.
I agree, and I mean, we're even with our biology. Oh, good lord, I couldn't get that word out. Our biology books, our biology history, everything based off of what a group of people say that we should or should not believe. And to
Oh,
me, it's almost as if they're erasing history to a point. And to be honest with you, you mentioned earlier to where, like, over here in the New World, the America, the United States. I can't say the Americas as a whole because some of the names further south in Central and South America.
sure.
But here in the States, especially in Appalachia, they hold on to a lot of strong traditions out there. You don't whistle, at night.
Yeah.
You don't, there's a reason behind it. And it's not old, and, I'm going to use my fingers in parentheses here, old world superstitions. This is a way of life and how they coexist, with what's going on in nature. 150 years ago, our perception of the world was totally different than what it is now. And I'm a child of I was born in '75. I'm a child of the '80s. Indiana Jones was Raiders of the Lost Ark. I love that movie. And I remember being a kid in elementary, and I wanted to be an archaeologist like Indiana Jones. I wanted to go discover, and I had a teacher tell me everything's already been discovered.
Oh, yes.
And that, I'll be honest with you, that kind of like crushed me. And I was already big into the paranormal. And I was like, well, I'll just find this stuff then. And that's when I started pouring over books of ghosts and vampires and werewolves, and you mentioned earlier of no cross pollination with Australia, to where they're now thinking to where the Aborigines in Australia are the oldest peoples on the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people are even saying that culture goes back, over 45,000 years, which really we'll go with a conservative estimate, right? Scientists believe that we've been anatomically human, anatomically in this present form with this present mind for maybe 100,000 years. So what is going on here is Australia has been inhabited by us for half as long as we've been human. So think about this. So out of Africa, if we're going to go take that notion, out of Africa, and then to get to Australia within 50,000 years, it doesn't make any sense, my friend.
No.
We're talking about people that are equipped to navigate the ocean, to navigate the open ocean. And not only that, but people that went there to settle Australia had to go as family groups, right? They had to go as colonists. And to do this 50,000 years ago is tantamount to going into space and going to Mars with your family to repopulate a distant planet. It would have been the same thing. They had no idea what was over the horizon. At least whenever you go into space, you know what your destination is. But these folks would have had no idea about that. And then they get to a place that is inhabited by the megalania, which is a huge, monitor lizard that they had to fend with. And of course, they have tales in their culture too of things like the Yowie,
Yep.
but they also have things like they have the Mimim lights there, they have the Mimis, and they have the Wagina, which are all very similar to what we would call fairies as well. Because any group, any society that is closely affiliated with the land sees things that we can't because we don't have that same affiliation any longer.
One, you're right. And, speaking of that too, though, so here's the thing I wish a lot of people would remember. So in these cave pictures and cave drawings and, these carvings and stuff, these were people that were telling, when they're telling a story, they're telling their story, not a story. So when they were drawing stuff, they were drawing what they were seeing. They weren't like, using this as, well, we're making this creature up to teach our little ones anything. No, this was, okay, look, this is how you kill this thing. This is what you look out for. This is what we saw. And a lot of the cave drawings and cave paintings they have in Australia are eerily similar to what we have found all around the world.
You're absolutely right about that. Exactly. Yeah. And so my one research colleague, Anne Celine, which I hopefully someday you have her on the show. She's very, very good at this. She has this notion of the great forgetting, where we as humanity have forgotten where we came from and what we knew, and I think that is a really cool statement to make, because is it possible now, with everything that's going on, at least with some of us, in our dive down certain rabbit holes and are looking in our way that we look at reality, are we now in the process of going through a great remembering, which I hope that we are?
I think you're right. And I believe it or not, I think I posted a little TikTok yesterday morning about this, and I view the internet now as another dimension. So, through the use of this dimension called the internet, we're able to bring, we're able to now connect more like-minded people with encounters, with theories. And I think that people are now, like you said, reawakening to where they're now realizing there's more to the world than what we've been led to believe. Once people can put down their black mirror, i.e. their phone, there is, it's the world hasn't changed. It's still supernatural. It's still paranormal. It's still cryptid. We're the ones that have changed. We're the ones that are not acknowledging it. And that doesn't mean that they're going away. It just means that when the encounters happen, it's much more powerful, I think, than it was 150 years ago.
Right. So I look at it this way whenever we talk about things like fairies and such. I firmly believe in frequencies, vibrations, resonance, and all that kind of stuff. So I think to kind of put it into kind of new agey terms, although I don't like that very much, but to put it into kind of an analogy, is that there's this great tuning fork, right? That God, whatever you want to call deity, the divine, whatever, has hit that tuning fork, right? And that vibration is still going on, right? This is by what all life is kind of tuned into and what we come out of, right? And it's still going. The vibration's still going on. But we as humans have left that vibration behind. We now live in homes. We have electricity. We don't have to worry about the sun coming up to work. We don't have to worry about, a nighttime bedtime anymore. Miles are cut down to, just a mere fraction of time now because we can fly from place to place. And every time we look out the window into that darkness, we fear what's out there because we're unfamiliar with it anymore. So anything beyond our front door is now chaos. And we have the imagination now that within our home, within society, within our cities, within our states and countries, that's the civilization, right? That's where the civilized live. And everything beyond our walls is where the other lives. That's where the scary things abide. That's where the things that go bump in the night hide out, right? But what we're missing is we were all part of that universal vibration that's still going on. And every now and then, if we go into those, those places that are obscure, that are still wild, maybe something in us syncs up with that vibration and it resonates within us. And now our eyes are opened up and we can see the things out there that we normally can't see because we are not in the same frequency.
I love that. I love that perspective. I love that theory. I agree. I do think that the frequency that we were, in tune with, we've untuned, or we've came out of tune with it. And I look at everything changed. And because I mentioned 150 years ago, I think everything changed 150 years ago with with new technology coming in. And I'm not bashing technology. I think technology is an important thing to have. But I think when it comes down to who we are and to our roots as a people, it is tied into nature. But if you look at who we are as people too, though, I'll be honest with you, 300, 400, even 1,000 years ago, man, they were tough. I mean, because we don't have the physical capabilities to survive harsh winters or, without having shelter and comfort. We're not designed that way. Our babies, when they're born, it takes 9 to 12 months to start walking,
Exactly. Yeah, we don't have claws. We're not covered in hair. We don't have any, teeth. The only thing that we have is our intellect, right?
Yep.
But we were able to get through this world by existing alongside it and negotiating with it, right? At one time, it's just been the last few thousand years where we've become the apex predator because at one time we were prey.
Exactly.
And now, yeah, right. So now we've got to the point now where we're kind of like the master of all that we survey. And we are filled with this great Greek word of hubris, right? We think that we are the pinnacle of everything. And in that pride, we no longer can accept that there are things out there beyond our knowledge, right? So Bigfoot and fairies and all that kind of stuff are now just clinging to the periphery. But that doesn't mean that they don't exist. That means that we are not admitting that they exist.
I agree. And so one of my theories I run with when it comes to paranormal, subdivisions are going up every day. We're cutting into the woods. We're expanding. Our cities are expanding. Our suburbs are expanding out there. We're getting houses now that are 10 years old that are haunted. They have poltergeist activity. And I look at it as it's because we've encroached into a certain area that we're not supposed to encroach into. And, that's what people do. We expand, we grow, we build. And I think that's where a lot of the paranormal, though, is coming from. And a lot of these new subdivisions, these new houses, is because of, we've gotten into the Fey world. And I think the Fey world is a lot bigger than most people realize. But I do know, there was a movie that came out recently by M. Shalamanite's daughter. It was called The Watchers. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
Yep,
or not.
I did. Yes, sir.
I'm not going to... I watched that. I just rewatched it again over the weekend. I mean, the first time I watched it, I stood up. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So very well researched and how she went into this film, and it's a sleeper. I don't know why more people haven't seen that yet, watched it yet.
I agree.
Because
I agree.
There was, with the Nephilim, there were so many ties in with the Nephilim to the Fey folk, to everything into this. And the one part that really gets me is when she talks about how they coexisted side by side. And then a war broke out, which doesn't surprise me. And we beat them down into the dirt. We sealed them in, and they dug their way out.
Right. Right.
But that's only one part of the world.
Sure. Oh, that's right. And there is this residual knowledge about a war between humans and the fairy realm, right? So we have in Ireland the Tua de Danann, which is the people of the dawn, the first people, which basically is kind of like the establishing factor in Ireland, which are seen as fairy. Now, the idea is that humans that came over then fought them and drove them out. And if you look at the Native Americans, we have the same thing with the Pukwudgie up in Massachusetts area, up in the New England area, where they were givers of culture, and then we went to war with them and we forced them out. Also in Hawaii, we have the Menehune, that we would not have been able to survive. Human beings would not have been able to survive in Hawaii unless we had them as helpers. And we talked about the Wagina and the Mimis a little bit earlier in Australia as well. So we have these givers of culture throughout the world, in all cultures, and then something happened where we turned against them. And, this could be an allegory with us turning against nature and becoming civilized, but whatever happened, we have lost a vital part in who we are, and that communion with the nature no longer exists. Now, we do have hints of it. We have hints of it in the way we still celebrate Halloween, right? With putting out jack-o'-lanterns to represent that the fairy lights had already been there. With bringing in a tree during Christmas time, with putting wreaths on our door, all these are still linked to the natural world, but we have forgotten the truth behind this. And what we then have forgotten is we've not only have we forgotten about the truth behind our rituals and our ceremonies, we forgot about the truth that we are also very much a part of this world that we abandoned. And now, not only did we abandon, but now we're also destroying it as well. And we've neglected to inform ourselves that we live on this world, right? We share this world with other human beings, and there are going to be human beings that come after us that need this world as well too, but we are blind to that. So we just are a consumer society. We destroy everything around us, and not only do we destroy our world, so it's so much easier then for us to destroy the intelligences within that world as well.
I think you're absolutely right. I'll be honest with you. We've gotten so far away from it. We've ignored it. And, I think it's still resonating. And that might be the reawakening of what a lot of people are experiencing. And that might be the reason why. It's where if you think about it, 20, 30 years ago, these expos, these podcast shows, we had, In Search Of, and we had, some of the other kind of off-the-wall shows, but nothing like the resurgence that we've been having in the past 15 years.
That's exactly right, Matthew. That's exactly right. There has been this kind of renaissance, this rebirth in people who, all around the world, we suddenly decided that, hey, maybe we should wake up and look what we're doing to this world that we depend upon, right? This great spaceship Earth, as some people call it, right? And, we're starting to now respect other living things on this planet that are non-human, right? We care about sea turtles now, and we care about whales, and we care about trees. And we need to keep on doing this, because if we're going to have anything there for our children and grandchildren, we need to start now before it is too late.
Yep. And so on that note too, what I do is I try and get my kids out, whether it be hiking, doing something, there's, we got Pinnacle Mountain near us. And we go to the visitor center, and they got this neat little lake there. We go walk the trails and everything. And the more I get the kids out, the more I know that they are going to carry on to get this kind of conservancy to protect nature. They're going to, it has to start, we have to pass it down. I got lucky enough where, with my real dad and my stepdad were both big into the mountains. Both lovers of the mountains. As a kid, I lived in the mountains. We were always up in the, either the Wasatch Front, the Uintas, or the Wind Rivers up in Wyoming, which is beautiful, by the way. And we'd go up there for a week at a time. And the Wind Rivers was really neat because, I mean, you're 100 miles away from a hospital and there's no cell phone service. There was no cell phones at the time, actually. And we're on horseback. And it was, I mean, the best times. And that made me appreciate more and more time in the woods than being like, I'm always outside. I am always outside.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always outside. The last place I lived in, I built an outdoor tavern. I would always be outside. And I had a buddy of mine goes, do you just not like going inside? And I was like, no, I really don't. I prefer to be out here. Mm-hmm. And if you're inside all the time, I think you miss out on so much, You
do.
I mean, like we just moved in here a month and a half ago. And as soon as we moved in, like the second weekend here, I believe, my dog treed a possum in the back, and I'm in the suburbs, and we got a possum treed, and my kids thought that was the coolest thing in the world, and this he was scared. You could tell this poor guy was scared, and they kept shining the light on him. I was like, okay, guys, let's leave him alone. And when we go in, he'll come down. So somehow I got a possum hanging out in the backyard, and he can hang out as much as he wants. He's great. I ain't got a problem with him at all. And,
yes.
And so that's the cool thing. Like when I go on my investigations and research and stuff, my little boy is fascinated with bugs. He loves insects. It doesn't matter, insects. He's 7 years old, and you can show him a picture of a bug, and he'll go, "Oh, well, that's a such and such." And I'm going, "What?" He's going to try and carry this on. And I even told him that too. You don't have to be a Bigfoot researcher. Go investigate, find spiders. So he does.
Yeah,
he goes out hunting bugs in the backyard. And he'll be like, come on, let's go hunt bugs. And I'm like, all right. And we got one of those salt guns to kill bugs with. And so now he uses it to kill flies because he doesn't like flies. But, and he's getting into reptiles as well.
Oh, right. He's moving on up.
Yep. So he loves sharks. Yeah. He loves bugs. Spiders are his favorite. He loves reptiles. And he'll ask me, so what's your favorite reptile? You know how kids are. Like, what's your favorite dinosaur? And I do think that the kids, and of course my kids have their tablets. I hate to admit that, but they do. But the more time the kids spend outside, the more time they are unplugged, the more they're going to appreciate, and they're going to help carry on our conservancy. They're going to help carry on, the trying, I hate to use the term save the planet from the 80s, but, they're going to help. They're going to want to preserve and protect nature because it does need it. And I do think that, believe it or not, being part of the Bigfoot research community, that's huge on conservancy.
It is. And you stated this quite eloquently. I really owe it to you because I think that what you're saying right now is very, very pertinent. And it's also ironic as well, too, because I was just thinking about my little guy who's under the weather. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to be a dad here pretty soon and check on him. But I do want to at least bring this around because to piggyback off of what you said, the best days I've ever spent in the woods had my kids with me, right? And I remember one day I was at work last year. My kids went off and they went hiking by themselves, and they encountered a rattlesnake for the first time. And I was so glad that they did because they looked at it with awe and wonder. They didn't throw sticks at it or rocks at it or anything like that. But what happens is if you take a child out into the woods, what you're going to foster in them is a sense of stewardship, right? Not ownership, but stewardship. They're going to look at it as if they are getting use out of this and they want future generations to get use out of it. And not only that, but they want to preserve what's out there. And absolutely what you're saying is without people that are going out there looking for Bigfoot and other things, we need wild places, right? They need wild places to live. We know that instinctually. And we also need wild places because that makes us more human. Right? Even though we don't want to admit it, we need wild places because it puts us in our place. It makes us realize that we don't know everything And even better, we don't control everything. There's more to this planet than just the humans on it. And that is what I get out of it. That's why I love what you said, because my kids are doing the exact same thing, and they have that same love and awe for this planet as well.
That is excellent. Well said. Well said. And the piggyback on that one, I know you got to go soon. I apologize. The piggyback on that one is too, though, is that when you take your kids out to the woods and they discover something for the first time, it's like you're discovering it again.
You are. That's absolutely the case. Absolutely the case. Everything. So holidays, everything. You are reliving it again through their eyes, and there couldn't be anything greater on this planet.
Exactly. Like my little boy asks me all the time, he goes, "Is Santa Claus real?" I'm like, he sure is. He is 100% real. Santa Claus is real. He is real.
Yep, you better believe it. I say the same thing to my kids.
Yep. All right. I know you got to go, so I'll bring this in for landing. But there is one thing that we were talking about earlier about the Fae. And,
Yes.
inviting him to your house and everything else like that. And I'm guilty, everybody out there. I have a very intelligent audience, but I'm guilty of this one as well. There's one thing that happens right after Thanksgiving. And to be honest with you, the lady who marketed this thing is a marketing genius, the elf on a shelf.
Sure. That's right. That's right.
I firmly believe now that every time you break out the elf on the shelf, you are inviting the Fae to your house. What a great...
Right. So
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just saying that's right. So we talk about portals. We talked about portals. So there are ways, there are naturally occurring portals, but there's also portals that get created or conjured. And I agree with you 100% about this. Absolutely.
Yep. And I think believe it or not, I think through a lot of new hauntings and everything is because of the internet. Is because the internet is a type of portal, another dimension kind of thing. I really do. I firmly believe that. I mean, that's my flavor of the week on my thought, to be honest with you.
Well, so C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, he claims that whenever he was a young man, he stayed in a house that was haunted by ghosts and by fairies. And he said the fairies were far worse than the ghosts.
I believe that 100%.
I do too. I do too.
I believe that 100%. I am like at a battle with the Fae, and they're kind of winning right now because I just moved into this house, like I said, 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago. And I've already had a busted hot water pipe. I've got I've got a leaky roof now. You know what I mean? It's like and I feel so bad because the landlady, I'm like going, hey, it was raining on Saturday, and I was watching the Razorbacks lose, and I'm in the garage, and been kind of working in here, hanging stuff up, getting the studio put together. And I'm sitting down watching, and I was going, why am I hearing rain in the garage? And I looked over, I was like, no, and there was steady rain hole coming through. So I had two roofers come over earlier, which was really cool. But Ron, I do want to have you back on if you're okay with that. I'm going to put it out there publicly. I do want to have you back on.
We got tons of things to talk about, and I think my little guy is probably just simply coming through because we had a drive back from Kentucky yesterday, and it was about a 10-hour drive. So I think we're all a little bit tired, but I definitely wanted to get this in because I truly, I think you're a remarkable human being. I really respect what you do, but absolutely, let's plan on something else. I think we can talk about anything, but I would like to talk about vampires. I truly would like to go down that rabbit hole.
Let's do it. Okay, so I think for the next one, I'm going to put us on the air. I mean, I haven't stopped recording it, but let's see. Let me get my calendar out. I know I've got some dates in November. Let's see here. Are you going to be free? Let's go with November. How does the 5th sound?
Sure, put me down for that, my friend.
Got you down. Same time. I got you down. I'm going to write it down. Ron, vampires.
Yep, perfect. And I do apologize. Like I said,
no
gotta
apologies
get this
needed. No, as a father, I'm with you on that one. I appreciate you coming on so very much, especially, I gave thank you for taking the opportunity to come on, especially traveling back, having the little one down. This has been so much fun. And I've been.
It has always been great.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked for 45 minutes before we hit the record button too, so I know I've taken a lot of your time. You know, so but I do want to say thank you again, Ron. Do me a favor, real quick, before we wrap it on up. Tell everybody where they can find your books at, where they can find you at, and
Okay, sure.
send me links so I can post them in the show notes. I want to get your information out there.
Sure. So my website is ron-cryptoguru.com. So ron slash CryptoGuru, yeah, Crypto Guru. So ron/cryptoguru.com. So you can get my books there. You can get them on Amazon as well too by looking up Ronald L. Murphy Jr. And I'm on Facebook as well. So you guys can find Ronald Murphy on there, become my friend, and we can talk and debate and everything else. I'm looking forward to it because that's the only way we can learn. The only way we can learn is by sharing information.
You are 100% absolutely right on that one. And I think that's the key that we're missing in all of this stuff. And this has been a lot of fun for me. This really has been. And thank you for sharing your encounter. I can't wait to get into the vampires. I mean, I love vampires. I'm not like the sparkly kind. I'm talking. There's just something about that legend and lore that just rings. I don't know. There's something. Yeah, we'll get into it. So, but
yes.
All right, Ron. Well, I'm going to go ahead and mute. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I wrote a book on vampires, and there's actually a chapter in there about the sparkly vampires. So we can even talk about them for a little bit.
I'm down. Yep. I'm excited. All right, Ron. Brother, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you again. And everybody out there, thank you again for listening to the Drunken Cryptids. Please continue to like and share. Leave us a 5-star review. Drop a comment. Whatever. If you've had an encounter, you want to come on the show, email me, drunkencryptids@gmail.com. Send me a message on any of the social medias that we're out there. We're on all of them: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Rumble. We're on Rumble. I keep forgetting Rumble, but we're on Rumble. I think that's all of them that we're on. I have to check with Tommy. I'm sure Tommy will correct me on that one. But you guys, this was such a fun interview, and Ron was such a great guest. And it's really good to get some new perspectives on things. We started off on Bigfoot. We jumped over to the Fae folk. And if you've been listening to the show for a while, you already know that I have a thing against the Fae. I'm going to beat them eventually, guys. I really am. And when I do, I'm going to write a book on how to beat the Fae. So until next time, you guys, keep on squatching.
I can do anything that I want. I can do anything that I want now. I can do anything that I want. Hey, hey, if it is to be, you know that it's up to me. I'm headed to the front. I can be